Mr. Watson?
Thank you.
So the defense objected, saying that they wanted that what was just read was not line 1 because there's a redacted line. You've now had an opportunity to read that redacted line. Is there an agreement that that should be included, or is there something for the court to rule on?
May I propose something here?
Yes?
The state proposes marking the unredacted email, CPD email 1A, into evidence along with CPD email 1.
Any objection to that, Mr. McKay?
No objection.
Other than your objections that were previously stated. Thank you.
Correct.
Same for you, Mr. Pugh?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Same for you, Mr. Fahey?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, then you can mark that as CPD email 1A.
Yes,
And admit CPD email 1A at this time, Your Honor.
That's right, because there's a stipulation as to foundation. All right, so the identification mark is stricken. Both CPD email 1 and CPD email 1A under tab 5 are admitted.
May I approach, Your Honor?
You may. Do we need to make additional copies for everyone? I can do that. I think. Hold on one second. Mr. McKay, this is your copy?
Yes.
We'll see if the copy machine is cooperative.
Your Honor, while we're taking a
I'm
moment,
not.
may I provide the witness with some water?
Do you need water?
Sure, that'd be great.
I'll get it. Okay, so just for the record, the court has made copies that's being provided to all of the defense and all of the special prosecutors as well of CPD email 1A. You may proceed.
May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
Mr. Maris, I've handed you People's Exhibit CPD email 1A. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
Turning back to CPD email 1. The CPD email 1 state, Van Dyke is aware 911 caller has been attacked with a deadly weapon, a knife. Offender nonverbal, only growling, acting in a menacing manner.
Yes.
That same statement appeared on CPD email 1A.
Yes.
What's the next paragraph underneath Van Dyke is aware?
Responding officers have been attacked, tire flattened, windshield scraped. Offender continues to act unreasonably and is an armed assailant.
Moving farther down, CPD email 1 and 1A. Does Daniel Gallagher from his private email address write to Anthony Wojcik? Shooting officer exits his marked police vehicle and announces police and orders the offender to drop his knife. Offender takes aggressive stance, hikes pants, whips knife open, starts hopping, continues advancing toward officers.
Yes.
Does the email also state officers, plural, retreat slightly?
Yes.
At the bottom of the paragraph that we just read, does Daniel Gallagher write to Anthony Wojcik, can't overkill a person who is still alive at the hospital?
Yes.
Turning to the next paragraph down, does Daniel Gallagher write to Anthony Wojcik, we are trained to shoot until the threat is eliminated, defeated, or neutralized. Officer did exactly what he was trained to do.
Yes.
Does Daniel Gallagher, from his personal email address to Anthony Wojcik, next write, we should be applauding him, not second guessing him?
Yes.
Does Daniel Gallagher, from his private email address, next write, offender is still a threat on the ground because he still can get up and attack. He could throw deadly object / knife at the officer and still might be armed with an additional weapon?
Yes.
Does Daniel Gallagher then write to Anthony Wojcik, threat must be defeated before approaching offender who can then lunge at the officers?
Yes.
Does Daniel Gallagher then write to Anthony Wojcik, offender kept knife in hand entire time, offender never chose to abide by officer's commands, offender chose his fate, possibly suicide by police?
Yes.
Farther down, does Daniel Gallagher write to Anthony Wojcik, the shooting officer arrived knowing the offender attacked a civilian, attacked an officer, and was approaching a populated area?
Yes.
On CPD email 1A, is the next line, he was not the first arriving officer who had to assess the situation and were completely surprised, overwhelmed, and taken aback by the offender's actions?
Yes.
Turning to the last paragraph of CPD email 1, does Daniel Gallagher write to Anthony Wojcik, objective reasonableness? Would a reasonable officer placed in a similar situation take the same actions? The answer is absolutely.
Yes.
With the court's permission, may I show People's Exhibit CPD email 2, tab 6 to the witness?
Yes.
Mr. Maris, are you there?
Yes.
What is CPD email 2?
It is to March, David M. March, David March at chicagopolice.org, from Wojcik. Sent Sunday, March 15, 2015, 10:33 p.m. The summons says conclusion, and there's an attachment conclusion, dot.
Your Honor, we offer CPD email 2 in evidence.
All right, the identification marks are stricken on CPD email 2. It's admitted. The identification marks are stricken. It's admitted over the defense objections that were previously stated.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Marison, is there an attachment on page 2 of CPD email 2 that contains conclusion?
Yes,
Is that the conclusion that Anthony Wojcik sent to David March?
yes,
Did Anthony Wojcik to David March write in the conclusion the following? The above two-date investigation determined that Jaquan McDonald was an active assailant who, while armed with a dangerous weapon, used force likely to cause death or serious injury to a private citizen when he attacked and attempted to stab Rudy Brias, threatened the imminent use of force likely to cause death or serious injury when he incised the tire and stabbed the windshield of a CPD vehicle occupied by Officer Thomas Gaffney, and initiated imminent use force likely to cause death or serious injury when he initiated an attack on officers Jason Van Dyke and Joseph Walsh.
yes,
Does the conclusion that Anthony Wojcik sent to David March also state the above investigation concluded that Officer Jason Van Dyke's use of deadly force, the discharging of his duty firearm, was within the bounds of the Chicago Police Department's use of force guidelines and in conformity with local ordinances and state law?
yes,
Does the conclusion that Anthony Wojcik wrote and forwarded to David March then state, based on the above, the associated UCR report RDHX 8486, Your Honor, 155, is considered closed / non-criminal?
yes,
That's the conclusion that Anthony Wojcik sent to David March on March 15 of 2015. Is that right, Mr. Maris?
yes,
With the court's permission, may I show People's Exhibit CPD email 11, tab 9 to the way.
Yes.
Mr. Maris, I'm showing you CPD email 11. What is that?
an email from Thomas J. McDonough, thomasmcdonough@chicagopolice.org, sent Thursday, May 7, 2015 at 2:12 p.m. to Anthony T. Wojcik, and the CC to Daniel A. Gallagher, and the subject is forward RE.
Let's talk a little bit about CPD email 11. Could you turn to the bottom of page 2 and let us know if it identifies Ron Hosko, President, Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund?
It does.
As you move up that email, do you see in the chain an email from Thomas McDonough on Monday, May 4th, 2015 at 9:31 a.m.?
Yes.
Does Thomas McDonough write to Ron Hosko, I rebooked for tomorrow, same flight, I can drop off packet and we can discuss via conference call later. Is there anyone there tomorrow I can touch base with when I get into town?
Yes.
On page 1 of the email, you see a response from Ron Hoskow of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund.
Yes.
And that's on May 4th, 2015 at 9:01 a.m.
Yes.
Does Ron Hoskow write to Thomas McDonough, my use of force guy, former Fairfax PD, who Tony talked to, is at the beach this week, but can review whatever you have when he gets back. And then on the next page, you sharing some video, question mark.
Yes.
On page 1, do you see a response from Thomas McDonough to Ron Hoskow?
Yes.
And that's on Monday, May 4th, 2015 at 10:09 a.m.
Yes.
Thomas McDonough writes to Ron Hoskow, yes, I have a video of the incident captured from an in-car camera, squad camera. There is also other video showing offenders' movement prior to the incident. The video can only be looked at on the computer. I was not able to burn it to DVD.
Yes.
What does Ron Hoskow write back?
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Further up that email, do you see Ron Hoskow write back to Thomas McDonough on May 6, 2015 at 4:11 p.m.?
Yes.
What does Ron Hoskow write back to Thomas McDonough in the first full paragraph?
Tom, thanks for coming by yesterday. I read this up and saw the video this morning. So can you get a few other things for our review? Cole.
Ron Hoskow identifies some items to gather up for our review, including any audio of the incident, any full personnel history for Officer Van Dyke, any dispatch radio, autopsy, ME reports, photos, crime scene photos, McDonald's criminal history detail, any pre-CPD info, Van D, a copy of the circular, knives concealing a gun. Is that right?
Yes.
Does Ron Hoskow also ask in the email to Tom McDonough if there's any academy or other training on the knife wielder 21-foot rule such that a witness might be able to testify that it was the subject of training? That would be great.
Yes.
Does Ron Hoskow also write, as I mentioned, he's out of town this week and will be in force science training next week, but will be able to dig into this case very quickly. Signing off, thanks for all, Ron.
Yes.
Do you see the email that's next above that request?
Yes.
That's the email that you first identified as CPD email 11 sent May 7th, 2015. Is that right?
Yes.
Could you read that email for us?
Hi, guys. I was in DC area and met with Ron Hoskow regarding Van Dyke. Hoskow has some requests in the follow-up email below. Can you two gather any of the other items that he is looking for? Question mark. Hoskow and his group are very excited about this case. I think they will help Van Dyke immensely. Period. Let me know your thoughts. Period. Thanks, Tom.
Did you say, I think they will help Van Dyke immensely?
Yes.
You talked about the rules and regulations of the Chicago Police Department and CPD general orders when we first started. You remember that?
Yes.
Is disseminating information from within the Chicago Police Department to an outside agency, an outside person, for a non-Chicago Police Department reason, contrary to CPD general orders,
Yes.
contrary to the CPD rules,
Yes.
and that was what we discussed before, Rule 41, that prohibits disseminating, releasing, altering, defacing, or removing any department record or information concerning police matters except as provided by department orders.
Yes.
And that's also CPD General Order G0901 access that prohibits and strictly prohibits access to information for personal or other reasons. Is that right?
Yes.
And it strictly prohibits access to information to official police business, right?
Yes.
And that request is contrary to those CPD general orders and rules.
Yes.
With the court's permission, may I show People's Exhibit? Strike that, Your Honor. The state offers CPD email 11 into evidence.
The identification mark is stricken. CPD email 11 is admitted.
With the court's permission, may I show People's Exhibit CPD email 3, tab 10 to the witness?
Yes.
Mr. Maris, could you turn to tab 10, CPD email 3, and let me know when you're there?
I'm here.
What is CPD email 3?
There's an email from ronhosko@gmail.com, sent March 17th, 2015, 2:47 p.m. to Anthony T. Logic, AnthonyLogic@chicagopolice.org. The subject is reaction shooting.pdf. The attachments is reaction shooting.pdf.
What does the body of the email say?
Tony, comma, Brian, pull this piece, comma. Please let me know you got it and can open, period.
Does CPD email 3 contain the attachment?
Yes.
What's the attachment?
Law Enforcement Executive Forum.
And an article, Chicago police officer reaction time to start and stop shooting. Is that right?
Yes.
And that's sent from Ron Hosko to Anthony Wojcik. Is that right?
If I could object.
Yeah.
I believe the exhibit says police officer reaction time, not Chicago police officer.
Yes, Your Honor. Joining that objection.
That's sustained. Mr. Who said that? Mr. Pugh?
I did, Your Honor.
Mr. Fahey, you join?
Yes, Judge.
Sustained.
Does the article state police officer reaction time to start and stop shooting?
Yes.
And that's sent from Ron Hosko to Anthony Wojcik
Yes.
on March 17, 2015.
Yes.
State offers CPD email 3.
Identification marks are stricken. CPD email 3 will be admitted.
With the court's permission, may I show to the witness People's Exhibit CPD email 4, tab 11?
Yes.
Mr. Maris, I'm showing you CPD email 4. What is that?
There's an email from Wojcik was sent on March 17th, 2015 at 8:45 p.m. It is to ronhospital@gmail.com. Subject is IRE reaction shooting.pdf.
What does Wojcik write to Ron Hosko in the body of the email?
Ron, comma, received and can't open, period. Thanks again for all, period. Talk to you, son. I said son, soon, period.
State offers CPD email 4.
The identification marks are stricken on CPD email 4 and submitted.
With the court's permission, may I show the witness CPD email 5, which is tab 12.
Yes.
Mr. Maris, I'm showing you CPD email 5. Could you tell us what that is?
There's an email from Logic, sent March 17, 2015, 8:46 p.m. to Daniel A. Gallagher, daniel.gallagher@chicagopolice.org. Subject is forward, reactionshooting.pdf. Attachments, reactionshooting.pdf.
And it forwards the same email that we discussed previously that was marked as CPD email 4. Is that right?
Yes,
Is the attachment included on CPD email 5?
yes,
Is it the same attachment that we talked about before on CPD email 4?
yes,
Your Honor, the state offers CPD email 5 into evidence.
The identification marks are stricken. CPD email 5 is admitted.
With the court's permission, may I show People's Exhibit CPD email 10, tab 13 to the witness?
Yes.
Are you there, Mr. Maris?
yes.
What is CPD email 10?
It is a message from Gallagher, sent March 31st, 2015, 6:07 p.m. to dgal27@hotmail.com. The subject is forward, reactionshooting.pdf. The attachment is reactionshooting.pdf.
dgal27@hotmail is the same email address you identified earlier as Daniel Gallagher's personal email address.
Yes,
At the bottom of that email, forwarding Ron Hoskow's reaction shooting article to Anthony Wojcik, to Gallagher, and then on to Daniel Gallagher's personal email address, is there a signature line at the bottom of that email?
yes,
And does that say Dan Gallagher, Sergeant, Area 1, Violent Crimes?
yes,
Does it contain the same attachment we talked about before,
yes,
the reaction shooting article?
yes,
Your Honor, the state offers CPD email 10.
The identification marks are stricken on CPD email 10, and it is admitted.
With the court's permission, may I show People's Exhibit CPD email 6, tab 14 to the witness?
It's email, sorry, it's email,
6, tab 14, Your Honor.
yes. For some reason, I don't have that in my binder. I have a tab for 14, but I don't have the email.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes. Oh, so did you say email 6?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, it was just in a different tab, so I have it. I do have it.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, may I show People's Exhibit CPD email 6, tab 14 to the witness?
Yes.
Mr. Maris, what is CPD email 6?
An email from Ron Hosko@gmail.com, sent Tuesday, April 14th, 2015, 5:04 p.m. to Wojcik Anthony T. Subject regarding.
And then, may I ask just for a moment, Ron Haskow is the president of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund you talked about earlier?
Yes,
And that's April 14, 2015. Is that right?
yes,
Does Ron Haskow write to Anthony Wojcik, Tony, any luck making the case go away?
yes,
Your Honor, the state offers CPD email 6 in evidence.
If the identification marks are stricken, CPD email 6 will be admitted.
Can I take a moment, Your Honor?
Yes?
Nothing further at this time, Your Honor.
Okay. Cross? I don't know who wants to go first. Okay.
Mr. Maris, I think I heard you say earlier that the Information Services Division is important because they collect information and they preserve information. Is that right?
that's what it was duty, yes,
Well, and you're the director of that division?
yes,
So you agree that it's important to collect information and preserve it?
yes,
Do you know who collected the video in this case and preserved it by inventorying it?
no,
Have you ever heard of David March?
yes,
Does your division maintain the inventory records regarding the collection of evidence in any type of an investigation?
yes,
So did you see the inventory sheets in this case where David March and another detective inventoried the video in this case? Did you see that?
no,
What does PERF mean? P-E-R-F. When we saw PERF daily clips on CPD email 13.
I think it's Professional Executive Research Forum, something to that effect.
Are you sure, or are you guessing?
I'm trying to recollect.
Okay, fair enough. So somebody from the Crime Prevention Information Center sent out an email to a number of police officers that the city and the department was releasing the video in this case to the public. Is that right?
Yes,
And that was sometime in November of 2015. Is that your recollection?
from email, yes,
To your knowledge, does a detective have the authority to release evidence to the public?
no,
Okay. Now, by the way, the Chicago Police Department email system, your department would be able to maintain all of the emails written by all of the police officers, correct?
yes,
All right. If there was an email from David March to anybody in this case, your department would be able to retrieve that email, correct?
yes,
Of the emails that Mr. Watson showed you today, none of them are from David March. Isn't that correct?
yes,
17.
17. Mr. Mayor is taking a look at CPD email 15. It's from Anthony Wojcik to Dan Gallagher, right?
yes,
You don't see a carbon copy to David March, do you?
no,
You don't see a blind carbon copy to David March, do you?
no,
Sir, can we put up CPD email 12? Now, Mr. Mayor, direct your attention to CPD email 12. This is from Daniel Gallagher to the training division of the Chicago Police, or strike that, training of the Forensic Science Organization.
It's through training at forcescience.org.
So a person named Daniel Gallagher is asking for training within his duties as a sergeant of the Chicago Police Department, right?
He's asking for training.
Nothing wrong with that, is it?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll withdraw that.
Okay.
But take a look, if you will. CPD email 1. Mr. Maris, this is a Chicago Police Department email. Strike that. This is an email from a personal email address, egal27@hotmail.com, right?
Yes.
To Anthony Wojcik, right?
Yes.
With a carbon copy to Daniel Gallagher's police department email, correct?
Yes.
Again, Mr. Maris, you do not see a carbon copy to David March in this email, do you?
I do not.
And you don't see a blind carbon copy in this email, do you?
I do not.
Could you please put up CPD email number 2?
I'm sorry, which one is this?
CPD email 2.
Email 2, thank you.
Now, would you agree with me, Mr. Maris, that of all the emails Mr. Watson asked you about, this is the only one with the name David March, correct?
Yes.
All right. And this is to David March, right?
Yes.
Not from David March, correct?
Yes.
And it's from a person with the last name of Wojcik, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Maris, do you have a supervisor?
Yes.
Sometimes does your supervisor tell you what to do?
Yes.
Now, we don't have a reply to this email from David March, do we?
I have not seen one.
Could you please put up CPD email 11? Okay, Mr. Maris. This is an email from somebody named Tom McDonough. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And the date of this email is May 7th, 2015, right?
Yes.
And it's to Anthony Wojcik, correct?
Yes.
And there's a carbon copy to Daniel Gallagher, right?
Yes.
Nowhere in this email chain that follows does it indicate a carbon copy or even a blind carbon copy to David March. Isn't that right?
Does not.
Now, have you heard of the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police?
I have.
The FOP, right?
Yes.
That's the police union, isn't it?
Yes.
It is not a division of Chicago Police Department, right?
It is not.
And have you ever heard of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund?
I have.
And did you learn that Mr. Hosko, Ronald Hosko, worked for the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund?
Through these emails, yes.
Okay. That's an organization in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
Okay. And can we show CPD email number 3? Mr. Maris, this is an email from Mr. Hosko to Mr. Wojcik, right?
Yes.
And there was an attachment regarding reaction shooting, right?
Yes.
Did you read that scientific study that was the attachment in this email?
I did not read it.
Okay. But you will agree with me, Mr. March's, Mr. David March's name is nowhere on this email, either as a carbon copy or a blind carbon copy, correct?
It is not.
Now, could you please show us CPD email number 4? Mr. Maris, this is an email from Wojcik to Ron at ronhosko@gmail.com, correct?
Yes.
What's the date on this email?
March 17, 2015.
No carbon copy to Dave March in this one, right?
No,
Nor is there a blind carbon copy to Dave March in this one, correct?
there is not.
We received email number 5. Now, Mr. Maris, this is an email that is from Wojcik to Daniel Gallagher, correct?
Yes,
And would you agree with me, it's referencing the attachment regarding that scientific study Mr. Haskell had sent Mr. Wojcik?
yes.
Date of this email would be what?
March 17th, 2015.
Uh-huh. And nowhere on this email do we see David March's name as a carbon copy or a blind carbon copy, right?
We do not.
Uh-huh. And by the way, speaking of the date, March 17th, 2015, besides the fact that that's St. Patrick's Day, did you know when the police reports were submitted by David March in this case?
I do not.
Before this email, Mr. Maris, did you know?
Your Honor. Witness testifies.
That's overruled. You can ask a question, but just let the witness answer. Don't interrupt.
Let me just ask you this. March 15th is before March 17th, correct?
Yes,
Now, we see CPD email number 10. This email is from a Gallagher to somebody with an email of DGAL27 at Hotmail, that, correct?
yes,
So if I read this correctly, based on a previous email, Daniel Gallagher is sending an email to himself. Would that be fair to say?
yes.
And again, there is no carbon copy or blind carbon copy of this email to David March, right?
No,
No, that's wrong, or I am correct. There's no carbon or blind copy to David March.
there is no copy of blind carbon copy of David March.
Thank you. And now could we see CPD email number 6? This email is from Ron Haskell to Anthony Wojcik, correct?
Yes,
It's now dated April 14th, 2015. Isn't that right?
yes,
Nowhere in this email is David March's name reflected. True?
it's true.
So there's no carbon copy or blind carbon copy to David March regarding this particular email. Isn't that right?
There is not.
Your Honor, can I have a moment?
Yes?
Thank you, Judge. I have nothing further at this time.
No questions, Your Honor. We have Joseph Welch.
Okay, so no cross? Okay, what about on behalf of Mr. Gaffney?
Judge, I have no questions.
Okay. Any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
Thank you. You're excused. You may step down.